Hello and welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm Bess Hawthorne and I'm joined today by a very special guest. Her name is Sena Wheeler. She and her husband run Sena Sea together, a family-owned business that sells wild-caught Alaskan seafood directly to customers. Her family has been in the fishing industry for generations, and now she shares that with her own 3 children. Welcome, Sena.
Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, you mentioned 5 generations of fishing, and that is a big part of who we are. My grandfather immigrated from Norway. He was taught by his dad, and his dad was taught by him back in Norway. And when he immigrated, each of the brothers started fishing on the West Coast. So out of Seattle area, fishing all the way. At that time, they fished from Alaska down to Mexico. They fished quite a bit. But my dad married into the family and started fishing. My uncles all fished, and my husband married into the family and started fishing. So we're from the Pacific Northwest Seattle area and fish primarily for 2 generations in Alaska and Washington. So yeah, we eat a lot of fish. We know a lot about fish. I also have my master's degree in nutrition and food science, and I studied fish and omega-3s on fish. So we've got the fish thing covered pretty well.
Did you and your husband start this company, or is this a company that was started in your family, like your dad or grandfather?
For generations, they just fished like most fishermen. They sell the fish at the dock. And it was really about 10 years ago, we had our 3rd child, and I was home at the time. I've done everything from working full-time, corporate, part-time. I was home at the time, and Rich was fishing. He fishes salmon, halibut, black cod. Anyways, he was on the board of Copper River Salmon. And I'm telling him, oh, you guys should do this. You should do that. You should market Copper River salmon like grass-fed beef. You should say this. You should do that on this car ride. We were going to Thanksgiving. And he just finally turns to me and goes, you should do that. You should sell my fish. And he was already doing really amazing, like all the best handling practices, because I had this master's degree, which was looking at handling, correlated to sensory properties. So he's already handling his fish top quality. Anyways, by the time we got to Thanksgiving, it was a 9-hour drive. We had the whole business plan. We had the name. We were ready to go. We announced everyone, we're starting a new business. So they'd all fish, but
That's a great story.
We're the first ones that do the whole thing. We still fish. My husband doesn't catch all the fish. We have other fishermen. And now we have a processing facility where we cut it all to our specification. And then we ship it out. I mean, I'm packing every box still with my team. And so all the way from catching, cutting, freezing, shipping, we have, total control and a hand in it all the way to your people's door.
That's wonderful. And it's very fun that it's a family-run business. And your children, do they help with the fishing in the summer times when they're not in school?
Yeah, we get up to Alaska. It depends. They're older and teenagers, and they are so busy, but we always get them up to Alaska however much we can. And so they've always fished. They know the deal at the plant. My son he's a big, strong guy. So they love him, moving the fish around and shoveling ice and things like that. And then they'll come home. We do farmers markets too. So they'll come home and sell at the farmer's market. We had one time, my son he was a lot younger. He was maybe 10 or 12, and we had just got back from Alaska. So in Alaska, everybody has a boat. If you're on the boat, you've got a job. So everybody has a job on the boat. So we'd just been up there and we're down selling fish at the farmer's market. And I said, okay, Hugh, I got to go to the bathroom. You got to man this booth for like 10 minutes. So I come back and he has this customer, and this guy goes, is this for real? Did he catch this fish himself? Did he do this? Did he do that? Because if so, I'm buying everything. And I said, yeah, it's real. We just got back from Alaska. So it turns out he's a great salesman. That's
wonderful. So you sold out.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
That may need to be his future job. He needs to jump into the marketing side of things. Oh, yeah. Speaking of your children, how old are they?
Well, they are now, if you look on the website, you'd think maybe they're real little, because I still have really cute photos of them small, but now they are 12, 15, and 18, and our son just graduated high school last weekend.
So you have one son and the other 2 are daughters?
Yeah.
Your products include salmon, halibut, black cod, and much more. For those of us who are landlocked and don't eat seafood on a regular basis, tell me some of the benefits of adding more wild fish to my diet.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. So, fish in general is high protein, zero carbs. And so it's just like on a macro level, very healthy for you in terms of just getting a good clean source of protein, low carb or actually no carb. But then you go a little deeper and you've got the omega 3s. Omega 3s are essential fatty acids. So we cannot make omega 3s in our body. And so that's important for us to take in. So a lot of people eat fish for the omega 3s. The side benefit is omega 3s can help with a lot of things, including your mood and your weight and your skin and metabolism, tons of things, but just the low calorie of seafood. And then it's the unsaturated fat, of course. So adding seafood to your diet can be kind of a cascade in the right direction where you're having this kind of lower quality, high protein food that actually has health benefits that are really good. And I would say a lot of people are a little intimidated about making fish. If you add it and you start eating it a little bit more, you'll find that it's very simple and can be just growing the confidence, I think, is a big part for people.
Yes, especially if you don't have access to it regularly. Like, I mean, we can all go to a grocery store and buy fish, but usually the people that eat fish on a regular basis, cook it on a regular basis, are the ones who are surrounded by the sea.
Right.
I visited Alabama years ago and I kind of had the idea I'm not really a fish person. It's not my favorite. Growing up, we had a Red Lobster in town and I just wouldn't get near the stuff. I'm sure it was all frozen from who even knows where. It sure wasn't wild caught.
Right.
And I just was not a fish person. I was more convinced when I was married. My husband loves to fish and his family did fish fries. And it was, if we ever were at the lake, they cooked the fish right there on the shores of the lake. And somehow that made it taste so much better.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
So I was a little bit convinced, like, okay, well, I like some fish. And then I visited Alabama and a lot of the restaurants would advertise, that they had just caught it that day. It was never frozen. And I tried multiple things and changed my mind.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I am a fish person. I just have never lived in a place where I can have fresh on a regular basis. Right. And if I do buy fish, it's going to the grocery store to buy. Most of it would be farm raised fish. I'm sure that there are packages that say wild caught. What is the difference between wild caught and farm raised? And why would you say that wild caught is better?
It makes a big difference. So a lot of people that say, "Oh, I'm not really a fish person," just like your journey led you. It's really not about fish in general. It's just that, okay, maybe I grew up not eating great fish. It's more about if you've had kind of farmed fish, and it can just be, it's not very special. It's kind of, take it or leave it kind of a thing. It's also not as good nutritionally. So the kind of main things for farm versus wild, the wild salmon are out there in the wild eating wild things, and they have the high omega 3s, the good diet. I mean, just like we need to be, they're moving their bodies, they're eating, their natural diet. And so the omega 3, omega 6 ratio is better, higher omega 3s, whereas we get plenty of omega 6s. That's kind of your oils, your seed oils and things like that. So it's getting those high omega 3s that's really important. And so just on the nutritional level, the wild is better. On the kind of the taste, for sure, wild is just going to taste like you're saying. The wild caught, premium quality is just going to taste better. And you're like, oh, maybe I am a fish person. It's the quality of the fish. It makes a really big difference. And then there's just like the health of your family and what you're eating. So farm fish, you just don't know. It's very confusing. I think it's kind of maybe confusing on purpose. They call it sustainable or organic. And, it's one of these things where it's like they can call it organic because they're feeding it organic pellets. Of what? I don't know. We can't call our wild fish organic because we don't know what it's eating, but clearly I'd rather have it eat the natural food. And,
in its natural environment than
right.
have pellets.
Yeah, they have to put the dye in the food.
I once read an article about what China was feeding the farm raised fish that they sent over here, and it was pretty atrocious.
Yeah, it can be pretty
It's
scary.
like, what?
And I know that
What are they putting in their tanks?
and then we're eating that as food. So I think that there's many
Right.
levels where I think nutritionally, like, it wouldn't be the premium food I would feed my family. And then it just makes a huge difference that wild just tastes so much better. And then it's environmentally better. So I know that, there's concern for the oceans and overfishing, which is a totally valid concern. But just on that level, like the salmon is caught domestically by American fishing families. These are small boats, and the state of Alaska manages all their fisheries for sustainability and have been for a long time. So they've been doing a really good job. First, the salmon return, the numbers have to, in order for us to even fish, the numbers have to be returning high. You have to get your million fish go through the river first, and then the fishermen can fish. And so I think it's just important. People kind of are concerned sometimes with wild fish that they're kind of like eating the last wild fish, or should I not purchase this because, what are the methodologies and how is it caught? And so I would just look for wild Alaskan, because Alaskan fish is all sustainable.
That's very interesting. You mentioned earlier something about Copper River salmon. Tell me a little bit about that. Is that primarily what you are talking about when you mention salmon?
Yeah, we catch mostly Copper River salmon because we're located at the mouth of the Copper River. So salmon is like, how do I explain it? It's a little bit like wine, where the different areas. So the actual river that it was spawned in is the river it will return to. So when you hear salmon, wild salmon, you're often hearing about the river. Sometimes it's just called wild Alaskan salmon, but you often hear, Bristol Bay or Fraser River or Copper River. It's talking about the river that it belongs to. And so there's tiers of salmon, and it does get a little bit confusing because there's so many. It's like species wise, king is the best. And it's usually has to do with the omega-3s. So it's like beef, grade A or whatever. The higher the omega-3s or fat content, kind of the better it is. And then the more expensive and the more kind of sought after it is. So you have king, sockeye, coho. Then you layer that in with the river it was caught in. So Copper River salmon happens to be very cold, very long, very arduous river to return to. And so for that reason, those salmon that are returning to the Copper River put on more omega-3s. So they're naturally higher in omega-3s. So that makes them both healthier and taste better. So that's why the Copper River, people hear about it and they go, well, what's so big about this salmon? Well, it's just better because it has higher fat.
That is interesting to know. I didn't realize that they were all named by the place that they return to, or often named that.
Yes.
You mentioned something about red food dye earlier.
Our Copper River salmon is the reddest salmon you'll ever see. We get comments all the time on our site that people think there's dye or that we're doing filters, and no, this is the reddest salmon you'll ever see. So it does turn blush, so it turns less pink right before, they spawn and then they die. And right at that point when they're about to spawn, they'll turn lighter pink and the quality degrades and things like that. So you don't want to catch the fish kind of way up the river right when it's about to spawn and it's blush and it's less pink. The bright red color is usually a sign of a very healthy fish.
Do they add red dye in the stores to make it look more like the color they want?
Yeah. And I honestly don't know how or what they're putting into it, but oftentimes you can see, farm fish is going to be a much paler pink. And just to get it that color of pink, because the salmon are pink from what they eat out in the wild, and they're out in the ocean. And so whatever the pellets are, they put the dye in, I guess. And it's just but they're much paler and they could never get it, or maybe it would be more expensive, but they can't get it to the color of red that we see naturally in wild Alaskan salmon.
Well, they sound delicious, and I cannot wait to try this salmon.
Oh, it's really good.
On your site, you can order all the fish you've mentioned, and you can order variety packs. You can order other things too, like shrimp and oysters. And I guess most of the things that you would think of when you think of seafood
Yeah.
are on your site.
Our processing facility is in Alaska, so everything is wild caught in Alaska, and everything is caught by fishermen we know and trust. So if we have crab, that's because someone we know went out and caught it, or oysters or shrimp, things like that.
Yep. And you ship it straight to people's door. You don't do you still go to farmers markets up there locally, or is it mostly just shipped to the door?
Yeah, we do our local farmers market just because we've been there so long. We just love to serve our local people. But our primary method of sale is right through the website. You can go to www.senasea.com, SENASEA.com. We ship every Monday. And so we try to make it just as easy as possible. You can hop on, pick what you want, order it, and we'll ship it right to your door. And, when you have fish on hand, you'll eat more of it.
Yes. And it comes frozen, so you can keep it in your freezer until you're ready to make that special meal.
We do premium frozen, and it is really nice to have. When you have it just in your freezer or at the ready, you can defrost it very quickly. I always forget to pull meat out the night before, but with our fish, I pull it out, as I'm starting the rice. It can defrost in 30 minutes. So that's really nice. And then it's just ready when you're ready.
Do you have to put it in water to defrost it, or do you just let it sit out for 30 minutes on the counter?
You can put it in the fridge. So you can put it in the fridge for 30 minutes. I put it in water. They're all individually vacuum sealed. And so cold water is the best way because then, the surface temperature isn't getting up to room temp. It's staying at refrigerated temps, and the water defrosts it faster.
So when you get the different kinds of fish, how would a person know how to cook them? How do you encourage your customers to try different kinds of fish, experiment with different recipes if they're new to cooking seafood?
We do try to help with that a lot because that's the thing I hear from people over and over, is that kind of intimidation around cooking it or just knowing what to do when they get home. So we do have we put cards in the box. So you have a handling card so you know exactly how to handle it, how to defrost it. But then we put a recipe card in for each species that you bought. It's a nice starting point. We also have a lot of recipes on our website, and we have a free cookbook. If you jump on our email list, which is a great way to communicate, we'd send some recipes. And from working at the farmers market for all these years, people always ask, they say, well, how do you cook salmon? And they go, no, how do you cook salmon? Being in a multi-generational fishing family. So we put some of our top recipes right into a cookbook and download, send that to people for free. So we're really trying to kind of help and encourage people to try some different things and try some recipes.
Okay, so they sign up for your email and then you send the cookbook
Yep.
through an attachment.
Yeah.
Okay, but on your website, you do have some recipes listed, and you have a blog where you discuss things that have to do with fish.
It's amazing. You'd think I'd run out of things to say about fish, but not yet.
You still keep posting about them. One of the posts that I saw was about kids. How do you teach kids to like fish? What were some of your thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I have a lot of friends that come over, and of course, we always serve fish when people come over because that's just what people expect. It's like, if you go to a rancher's house, you expect some beef or something. And so we always serve fish. And most moms kind of say to me, kind of quiet, like, off to the side, like, just so my kid doesn't really like fish. And I'm just like, let's just not say that. And let's just go with it. It'll be fine. So the things I do is I will talk about Rich being the fisherman. And so connecting the kids to the story of the fish goes a long ways and longer than you would, further than you would expect. Rich's photo is on every portion. I might show him the photo. I talk about Rich catching it, or sometimes I talk about my kids catching it. And my kids having that positive attitude around that's kind of the base layer. So I'm just building positivity. I'm not talking about what we don't like. I'm just talking about positive things about the fish. I'm not pushing them to make, are you going to like this? Or are you not going to like this? I just talk about catching it and kind of bring that story to life first off. And then cooking it. I mean, I have found quite simply kids are like adults. You have a high quality fish that tastes good, they'll like it. One of the biggest things is
Mhm.
kids don't like fish that's dried out. So if you overcook fish,
That's true.
it can get very dry in your mouth. And kids, I think, are very texture matters to kids. And so you don't want to dry that fish out because then it's like kind of dry in your mouth. So keeping the fish really moist.
Mhm.
I will often cook Copper River sockeye is very moist. We also have black cod, which sable fish is it's a white fish, very high in omega 3s. It's incredibly silky and moist. And so I often feed that to kids and they're like, oh, they're kind of surprised that they like it. The other thing I do is just serve it with a smile. I don't apologize. So it's surprising, but I hear parents kind of like, as they're serving food, kind of going, oh, I know you don't like this, but, and it's like, no, I serve it with a
Yeah,
smile.
that's the worst setup for eating something.
Yeah. So I serve,
Nobody wants to hear that right before they put it in their mouth.
right. And you don't need to remind them. And fish is all different. So fish, there's not one type of fish that there's so many types of fish in so many recipes. So that's the last thing
Mhm.
is just because they didn't like fish one time back when it was prepared some way is just to hit them with a lot of variety. There's lots of different types of salmon. There's a lot of different types of recipes, fish tacos on the grill. There's so many recipes and so many types of fish. I would just keep at it and just try lots of different things. If they like a certain sauce, oh, great, put that sauce on, but maybe try this or try that and just see what they like. Because like anything else, it's just, if it just is normal, then, just like my kids, they eat fish because
Mhm.
they're not going to, that's what we eat. So they've always eaten fish
Right.
normal.
So healthy for them. And so introducing healthy foods into their diet over and over and over and over, they acquire a taste for it. And hopefully you're learning more and more how to cook it, not overcook it, like you mentioned, so that they enjoy it and you enjoy it too. Speaking of cooking a fish, the fish that you order, like let's say salmon, for example, I've definitely had grilled salmon, but I've also had a salmon that's been put in the oven, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
So there's different methods from sauteing to baking to grilling. Can you share some tips for selecting the best fish for grilling, baking, or frying? How would we know when we order the fish what the best method is?
Well, there are so many types of fish and you can do so many different things with them. I think I'd say most of the fish we sell is very versatile on the type of cooking. And I think of it a lot as time of year. So Copper River sockeye is caught in the spring, May and June, and that's a great time to get out and be grilling. And it happens to be great on the grill. It's such a premium quality that you don't need to do a lot to it. So it's just like if you were buying beef, if you bought that really good cut, you might feel like, yeah, I can throw it on, salt and pepper it, just do a little bit and throw it on the grill. It's going to taste great. Whereas if you buy our lower quality, you're going to need to do a lot, maybe stew it up, kind of spend more time on it. So the Copper River sockeye is like that. You don't need to do a lot. I do a lot of grilling with it. The Copper River coho is a fall fish and it's just more buttery and mild. And it just so happens, I feel like it just takes to like it comes inside, it comes indoors, and I do it more like a lot of sauteing and recipes that might have kind of a more of a sauce and it takes on the flavors, things like that. Like halibut is very versatile. I might again grill it in the summer. I bake more in the winter because I don't mind heating up the house. So many of them are versatile and oftentimes we put the recipes in the box. I might put kind of a recipe that might match the time of year as well.
Do your recipes sometimes include different methods of cooking? Like, for instance, you could grill it or you could saute it.
Some of them include some different methods, and then some of them are like a crispy skin method that is, sauteing or is kind of specific to the method. But I would say, and there's tons of recipes out there. I use the internet a lot. It's like, okay, I want to grill. What's a good salmon grilling recipe? So I think that, there's a ton of different types. There's even air frying too, that you can cook fish so many ways.
That's true. Air frying is a great option. I'm sure it's hard to choose, but can you share a personal favorite recipe One that your family loves?
Oh, yes. Let me think. I would say, well, first of all, I was just going to post about this coming up because it's Father's Day, but my dad has his, I call it the controversial no flip grilling recipe. And so a lot of people, and I myself included, I mean, we used to always grill our fish, but we would put it skin side down, kind of try to get those grill marks and then flip it. And my dad, it took him a couple years to convince me of just grilling it on the skin side and not flipping it. His reasoning is because it does kind of come apart a little bit when you flip it, but also when you have all the omega-3s and the fat, you don't want that to like drip away. You want to retain it. So he cooks it with the skin side. So it's kind of just retaining its own natural fats. And I like it because I like to drizzle something on top. So I'll salt the flesh itself before I put it on as early as I can. And then I'll make some sort of a drizzle, a marinade. So it might be olive oil or butter. It's always both one of those, the other, or I do a combination sometimes. And then some type of acid. So lemon or lime, maybe a little bit of a white vinegar, and then, garlic, herbs, whatever's around. And then I go, oh, something green. I'll just chop up some chives or some cilantro, really whatever I have. And that goes perfect over the top. And then it's, if you're doing the no flip, you can put that dressing on or that marinade and it just stays on. It doesn't fall off when you flip it. So then you're just leaving it. You want to make sure that you can close the grill if you are going to do the no flip. It needs to have a lid. So then you just do the lid and it takes about 15 minutes and you pull it right off. It's really actually so simple and so easy. And I should mention, since all our fish is frozen, it's actually sushi quality. So you don't have to worry if it's a little bit undercooked inside. It can be eaten raw safely. So if you can undercook it a little bit, you're okay just because it was frozen.
Interesting. It's definitely better than overcooking it.
Oh, yeah.
It's, to me, similar to beef. If you have overcooked beef that is just chewy and hard to eat, it loses its appeal.
Absolutely.
But if you undercook it just a little bit, I mean, everybody has their favorite, whether it's medium or medium well or medium rare, but if you undercook it a little bit, it's better than if you've made it into rubber.
Yes. And
you've made it into leather.
And for fish, and that's one reason, fish has that finer line and you can pull it off a little early. It's going to finish cooking on the plate, that kind of a thing. And so definitely, I think that's the number one thing people do is overcook the fish and just go a little bit less.
Mm-hmm. To know when fish is done, would you say that most of the fish you sell, the way to know is it's flaky?
Yeah. And some like salmon won't separate on its own. So salmon stays really together. And so sometimes you have to kind of put the fork in and flake it yourself and look. And so you're looking for, it goes opaque when it's done. And so I'll pull it off when there's just, a hint of iridescence still. But you really have to use a fork and look inside because it's not going to sort of flake on its own or separate. If it's flaking on its own, it's probably way, way overcooked.
And you do have to take into account, I think you mentioned this, the fact that it will continue to cook after you take it off, just from the residual heat.
Right.
And fish is pretty delicate. And so I would imagine that would happen pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's similar to beef, but again, yes, more delicate. And so you might have a little bit of iridescent and it doesn't take long for that to kind of finish out.
Mm-hmm. Just keep steaming. Do you cover your fish when you take it off to kind of keep that heat in, or would that over steam it?
Yeah, I do either way. I cover it if I can, or I just pull it off. We eat it pretty fast. So I usually have it, everything ready on the table and we're pulling it off the grill and going right to the table. The one time I wouldn't cover it is if you're doing crispy skin salmon. So that's a whole thing on its own. A crispy skin, you're often doing it kind of a pan fry. And it's often, if you really want that crispy skin, you serve it with the skin side up. And that is so that the moisture, because if it's hot and it's on the plate, that moisture will uncrisp the skin. And so you would leave that skin up, and then you wouldn't cover it because it would get moist and then less crispy.
That makes sense. Before we move forward, a big thank you to the sponsors for supporting today's episode. Are you searching for hands-on activities to help your kids explore the practical side of science? Look no further than your kitchen. Inquisicook blends food science and culinary arts into an engaging program that puts delicious food on the family table. Let Inquisicook do the teaching with lesson videos, reliable recipes, and assessment tools that put students on track for success. Their online platform is easy to navigate and optimized for mobile, so the learning experience can move from the classroom to the kitchen without a hitch. Inquisicook turns curious students into intuitive cooks, not just recipe followers. Say goodbye to the tyranny of the ingredients list and say hello to utilizing what's in season, what's on sale, or what's in the fridge. Visit inquisicook.com to view sample lessons, then check out the recipe gallery to see just how crave-worthy science can be. Today's culture shifts like sand, but New St. Andrews College is established on Christ, the immovable rock. The college is a premier institution that forges evangelical leaders who don't fear or hate the world. Guided by God's Word, equipped with the genius of classical liberal arts and God-honoring wisdom, with a faculty dedicated to academic rigor into God's kingdom, New St. Andrews College offers an education that frees people. To find out more, visit nsa.edu. What do you typically serve when you're inviting guests over, when you're considering kids that maybe haven't had much fish in their life and the parents are worried and nervous? You did mention your dad's recipe, which sounds amazing, but do you have any particular recipe that comes to mind when you're thinking a group of people, especially ones that may be new to seafood?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll often do Copper River salmon, so Copper River sockeye, just because I'm looking for the high omega-3s and that moist, delicious flavor. So I'll often cook that just like I kind of described on the grill. And then another secret we do is our black cod, also called sablefish, which I think I mentioned. It is high fat white fish. So the texture is really silky. It's the one fish, I mean, I know we talked about overcooking, but it is the one fish you can't overcook. It stays really moist no matter what. I usually bake it you can grill it, but I bake it in the oven because it's very easy and it stays moist. And we usually do like a soy sauce, garlic, ginger kind of marinade and bake that in the oven. And it tastes like so gourmet. I mean, the adults are like, oh my goodness, I've never had anything like this. Like they think I'm a great cook. It's just a great fish. And then the kids, they're gobbling it down because
I'm sure you are a great cook.
It's the fish. But the kids you'll find are like sort of gobbling it down because of that silky texture. It's just easy to eat.
Oh, and honestly, this type of fish that you're talking about would be found in gourmet restaurants. When I was in Alabama, we went to a restaurant and had something. I can't remember what it was. It was a whitefish that was very gourmet, fresh caught. It was delicious. And I have not seen it on a menu anywhere else that I've lived that's landlocked. I mean, if we did have it on a menu, it's probably at a higher end restaurant and they imported it or got it frozen from a company like yours. And then they're putting it on their menu for a high price. So that is a treat. When you have company over, I hope those kids are really appreciating what they're eating.
Yeah.
That would be a delicious meal.
Yeah, it's funny.
What do you typically serve with fish? Oh, go ahead. Tell your story first.
Oh, I was just going to say, way back when Rich just started fishing and we just gotten married and we had my parents over a couple of times for dinner and we had cooked pork. We cooked pork twice in a row on accident. They came over another time and my husband had cooked pork and my dad said, you're a fisherman now. And when people come over, they're going to expect fish. And we were like, oh, you're right. And
he had to be initiated into the
he
family.
had to just let us know this is the expectation. And that's just how it is. And especially people that, might not be, they might not feel comfortable cooking on their own. They know they're going to get a treat. They know they're going to get some good fish. And so we have followed it to a T and we always make fish for our company now because that's the expectation.
They don't want pork chops.
They don't come to our house for pork chops.
Right. Well, what else do you serve when you're serving fish? What are some of your sides or desserts that you come up with to make a complete menu?
Well, I always do, especially if there's kids. So that's one thing I think about for kids is kind of our golden rule is like, you don't have to eat everything on your plate. Just pick something that you like. And so I don't kind of like, I don't push the fish or push any one thing, but I do make sure that if maybe they're not going to eat as much fish, there's something more filling that they will like. So I will often do, we eat a lot of rice with our fish at home, but I will often do some potatoes, or I do like kind of a potato and sweet potato, kind of a roasted vegetables kind of a thing. So I do want, fish is not that filling. So I do want to make sure that there's kind of a more filling starch alongside if I have company. And then I often grill. So for me, I have a family of 5. I'm very busy. I'm kind of go for that efficiency. So if I grill fish, I'm always going to grill a giant pile of vegetables alongside, because I love grilled vegetables, and leftover grilled vegetables are not a problem. I will definitely eat them. So I do tons of vegetables on the side. That's just me. I love to eat. I love fish and veggies. So, but adding that starch in helps other people kind of feel full, I guess.
I absolutely love grilled vegetables. Something about the grill turns them into candy. If you do grilled squash or zucchini, it's just my favorite. I could eat more of that than anything.
Oh, me too.
But also, if you needed more room, if you thought, oh, my grill's full, roasting vegetables in the oven, you may have mentioned that, is also a delicious way to do them. And I think kids are more convinced to eat them that way than if you simmered them on the stove.
Oh,
Sweet
yeah.
potatoes, like diced sweet potatoes, are just so much better than if you steamed them
Oh, I
or
agree.
something, I think, for kids.
Same. If I'm going to bake the fish, like if the oven's on, then I'm going to probably do a tray of roasted vegetables. I agree. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a particular method for rice that you love, or a favorite recipe, or do you just kind of follow the instructions on the bag?
We have a rice cooker, which I know seems silly because rice is very easy to cook, but I swear by
It
it.
saves room, though, on your stove. You can just plug it in and walk
Yeah.
away.
And so just when we're eating weeknight meals, we often, it's like I pull out the fish, put it in water, and I start the rice. With the rice cooker, I can cook it early, and it's just done and ready. The other thing, we have a rice cooker that has a steamer basket above it. And so I have frozen vegetables on hand, and it's like, well, I just throw vegetables in there. I throw some broccoli on top or something like that, and I steam the veggies at the same time, because it's like, there's already steam. What's one more veggie? So
That is an instant meal.
Yeah. Yeah. You do the rice, do the veggies on top, and then you do the salmon. I mean, we eat kind of rice, veggie, fish quite a bit.
I can imagine. That's very healthy. That is definitely life goals right there.
And easy.
Do you have a favorite dessert you would? Yes, and easy. Do you have a favorite dessert you would serve?
Oh, well, my kids would call me kind of like I'm a non-sugar person. And so they always tease me because I'm like, I don't do sugar. My daughter took up baking. She says pretty much just because I never did. And so if she wants cookies, she has to make them herself.
You had to fill the void.
So my daughter does all the baking and make sure that, there's some dessert. So I would say it's either ice cream that my husband picked up, or my daughter does really nice. She does, macarons and really, really nice stuff. So if anybody gets dessert at my house,
That's a treat.
It's definitely my daughter made it.
That's a very fun treat. I'm sure whatever she makes is delicious.
Her stuff is delicious, and everybody's on it all the time. She has to learn to share because people are like, ooh, what's that? And it goes fast.
What are you pulling out of the oven? It doesn't last long, whatever it is.
That's right.
From all of your years of serving fish to people, fishing, working at farmers markets, do you have a story that's funny, a horror story, anything like that that you would want to share with us?
Oh, yes. I have tons of horror stories because I cook a lot of fish that I do know what goes wrong. I will say that I was doing at our farmers market. It has an indoor space for restaurants and things, and they actually have a commercial kitchen. And I was doing a cooking demo. It was my first ever cooking demo, and they put the mic on me and everything, and I was super nervous. They were like, "Hey, now you got to call people in. There's people milling about. And, there's some chairs in front. So I have to go on the mic. Oh, I'm cooking up some, black cod if you want to sit down and watch." So it was completely out of my comfort zone. But I had chosen our family recipe because I'm so comfortable with it. It's our black cod or sable fish, like I talked about, with soy sauce and ginger and garlic. It's very easy. I've done it a million times, and the outcome is fantastic. And people take one bite and are just amazed. So I'm going, okay, no brainer. You can do this, Sena. And I've got the mic on, and I've got the oven right behind me, and my daughter's filming, and I put the fish in, and you broil it right at the end. And I had it on parchment paper. And so since it was an unfamiliar oven, it was so close to the top, the parchment paper caught on fire. And so I turned around to pull it out of the broiler, and I turned to face the audience, and it's on fire. I mean, I'm mortified. Like,
Oh, no.
I just caught the fish on fire, and it was perfect because, like we talked about black cod, you can't overcook it. It literally still tasted so good. I was like, you guys just come up and try it. I'm telling you, it's still going to be good. And it was.
You cannot mess this up.
I just proved it.
They were convinced after that. You proved it.
It was pretty good. It was like,
that's pretty horrifying. Thought you might have to get the fire extinguisher out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, talk about
that's
out of
bad.
your comfort zone and as embarrassed as you can get. But it all worked out fine, and people did love it.
That's wonderful. Well, you mentioned stories plural. Can you think of any more?
This is more of an amazing moment story. It was Rich's birthday. I can't remember how old he was turning, my husband's birthday. And we were out on the boat with the whole family. So family of 5 out on the boat, think camper sized, but you can't go outside. We fished all day with the family. And then we pulled up to this place. It's like a glacier. It's a fjord, and there's like 5 glaciers coming down into one fjord. So we're on this small boat, and we drive into this inlet, and we're like seeing glaciers calve. I mean, we could pick up a chunk of ice. We brought it on the boat. We fixed, of course, gorgeous Copper River salmon on the boat. We have a drink with glacier ice in it. My daughter, of course, baked a cake. And just that dinner and that night with those glaciers and our whole family on the boat was just one of those moments that's like, that was it. That, we often look back on those photos and have that memory.
That's a moment you will never forget. That sounds amazing. Like an incredible moment that people would search for on a vacation.
Yeah. And then we put the anchor down and slept right there and woke up to more calving glaciers. It was really incredible. And you're thinking, yeah, people would pay to be here doing this. And here we are.
Yes, absolutely. What is a calving glacier? Does that mean when they're breaking away?
Yeah.
Parts are breaking off?
So the glaciers in Alaska, I mean, there's glaciers everywhere. It's really incredible. But you have one of the things that makes Alaska so special is you have the snowy mountains, and then the glacier is coming down to the water. So it's all happening right in front of you. And so seeing the glacier come to the water is incredible. But if you're a calving glacier, yes, means a chunk of ice actually falling in, which is very dramatic and makes a big splash. It's very, very cool.
That is very interesting, very scenic.
Yeah.
How often are you in Alaska?
So my husband is there 6 months out of the year. So he's there from May or April through October. And then we bring the kids up in the summertime. Just depends on the year, 2 to 6 or 8 weeks. And then, when they were real small, we'd be living on the boat. And then you're kind of fishing and coming in and out. You might be out for days at a time.
And where do you live the rest of the year?
We live in Washington State. So we live in the center of Washington State.
Well, it sounds like a very interesting life and a very fun life. I would just love to visit Alaska one day.
Oh, definitely.
I've heard Alaska is absolutely beautiful.
Everybody should see Alaska. There's absolutely nothing like it. It's very dramatic, and I take a lot of pictures when I'm there, and it's so magnificent. You just can't even capture it.
When would the best time be to visit, in your opinion?
Definitely summer. Although summer isn't always very summer-like. People think of snow. Of course, it's snowy in the winter, but in the summer, it's coastal and it's just rains a lot. So if you go to Alaska, plan on rain. When we're there, often we always joke that there's like 6 sunny days. And those 6 sunny days are really worth the entire summer of rain because it's so beautiful. But I would say just, if you're close to June, you're going to have the 24 hours of sunlight. And so as close as you are to the summer solstice, it's going to be very bright, and that can be hard to get used to. And if you're closer into August, it changes very fast because then, by December, it's dark all the time. So in August, you're starting to get a little bit of dusky dark. By September, it's dark very early. So in August, you might get better. The weather is hit and miss no matter what, but in August, you're going to get more night skies. If you want to see the northern lights and things like that, you'll want the night skies. So that might be nice for that.
Oh, that sounds like it would be an incredible trip. One of these days I'll have to go.
Definitely.
And I'll take a rain parka with me, just in case. I'm sure it will be used if there's only 6 days of sunshine the entire summer that you're there, or the entire portion of the summer you're there. Well, I'm excited to try some of your recipes, and I will find your tips very useful. Thank you for joining me today and for sharing all of your expertise on the subject of wild-caught fish.
Thank you.
Until next time, bye for now. Be sure to check out the giveaway happening right now on Instagram at Come Over for Dinner.